Hello und herzlich willkommen zu Coffee Break German. I should have provided a warning about this t-shirt. You may in fact need sunglasses for watching this video. Welcome to a Coffee Break German live event. The idea of this event is that we are going to be doing a little learning in just 20 minutes or so, because that's the whole point of Coffee Break. You can actually learn effectively with very little time, and everyone's busy, so the chances are you haven't got much time to spend on your language learning. But with just a little bit of time, perhaps 5, 10, 15 minutes every day or every few days, you are going to be able to make progress with your language learning. Now, let's see if we've got anyone watching. Colin and Brigitte are watching. Hello. Jim is watching. Jim, I hope you're well. Hope you had a good time when you were touring Europe. Daniel is watching. Guten Abend. Chris is joining us from South Windsor, Connecticut. And Marta is joining us from London. Now, we've just done a French workshop and we're doing a German workshop here. We're broadcasting both on YouTube and on the Coffee Break German Facebook page. All being well, I hope it's working. I know, in fact, I can see that some of you are watching on Facebook, so it's great to have you here. If you are watching, let me know where you're watching from. And after this, we're going to be going on to a Spanish workshop. And yes, I will be changing the colour of my t-shirt for that one too. It's not quite as bright with the Spanish one, so you don't need the sunglasses. So as I said, what we're going to be doing is a little bit of learning. We're actually going to be joined by my colleague Thomas, and we are going to be listening to what could be described as a postcard. Thomas has received a postcard from Olivera, another of my German colleagues. And Olivera has written a postcard from a secret destination. And over the course of the video that we'll watch, you're going to be identifying that secret destination from the clues that are given. And of course, you're going to be putting your German reading to the test. So the whole idea is that you're trying to understand what's being said. You're trying to work out where the postcard has been written from. And of course, doing a little bit of German reading, picking up some vocabulary, and having a little bit of fun. So we have got viewers joining us from all over the world. Colin and Brigitte are joining us, or Brigitte are joining us from Winnipeg in Canada. We've got Rissart joining us from, I'm guessing, Wales, from the flag. Halle is saying Guten Abend. Mike, Guten Tag aus North Dakota. And we've got Liz joining us from Wien, lovely city, one of my favourite cities. It's great to have you all here. As I said, in just a moment, we're going to be watching, or we're going to be joined by Thomas for our postcard video, and he will be asking the question, Wo bin ich heute? Where am I today? Now, if you are already a Coffee Break Club member, then you should know that this is part of our Coffee Break Club content, so you may well be familiar with this particular video. If you are not familiar with it, then it's going to give you a taste of what our Coffee Break Club offers, and I'll tell you a little more about the club a bit later on. We've got Anonymom66 joining us from Atlanta. You're very welcome. And Joelle from Brussels. And Ruth is joining us from Durham in England. I think it's time to get on with the video. So as I said, we're going to be asking the question, Wo bin ich heute? Or indeed, Olivera is going to be asking the question, Wo bin ich heute? And Thomas is going to be helping us decipher Olivera's postcard. Now, of course, I should have reminded you, I am a learner in all of this. So I'm looking forward to learning some vocabulary, some new vocabulary in this video along with you. Shall we begin? Lass uns anfangen.
Wo bin ich heute? Hallo, mein Name ist Thomas und willkommen zu einer neuen Folge Wo bin ich heute? Olivera hat uns eine neue Postkarte geschrieben und wir versuchen herauszufinden, von wo sie schreibt. Lass uns anfangen.
Servus Thomas, ich habe endlich eine Städtereise durch Österreich organisiert. Der Trip begann gestern in der viertgrößten Stadt. Dort schauen wir heute mein Lieblingsmusical über die von Trapp-Familie an, die wirklich hier gelebt hat. Wir besuchen sogar das Schloss Leopoldskron. den originalen Drehort des Oscar-Erfolgs von 1965. Übermorgen schauen wir noch irgendwas über Mozart an. Der kommt wohl auch von hier. Na, wo bin ich heute? Bis bald, Olivera.
Thank you very much, Oliveira. And I am already wondering, and actually I think our listeners are also already wondering, in which corner of the world you are today. Let's have a look at the first sentence and see what clues we can pick up from that. Ich habe endlich eine Städtereise durch Österreich organisiert. Oh, so we already know the city we are looking for today is in Austria. Let's have a look at the second sentence. Der Trip begann gestern in der viertgrößten Stadt. So we're starting off with a German-English word here, the trip, der Trip. You could also say die Reise in German, but trip is a very commonly used term in German now. The trip started yesterday in the fourth biggest city. And begann is actually the imperfect preterite of beginnen, and it's an irregular verb, a strong verb. That's why we have the vowel change here from beginnen to begann. Then gestern, yesterday, and then we have as one word, viertgrößten Stadt, so the fourth biggest city. And it's actually quite common in German that you combine ordinal numbers, what they call, so erste, zweite, dritte, first, second, or third, with an adjective in the superlative, so biggest, strongest. So for example, you could also say zweitschnellste, the second fastest, or for example, dritthöchste, the third highest. I don't know how well you know your Austrian geography and your cities. I know Vienna is the biggest one, but I'm actually myself not sure what the fourth biggest city would be. But maybe some of you already know. Let's have a look at the next sentence. Dort schauen wir heute mein Lieblingsmusical über die von Trapp-Familie an, die wirklich hier gelebt hat. Let's maybe split the sentence and start with having a look at the first part of the sentence. Dort is the German word for there, and then we have schauen. And if we look at the end of this part, we have an, and it's a separable verb, anschauen, we are watching. So there we are watching today, heute, mein Lieblingsmusical, my favorite musical über die von Trapp-Familie. Und über is used for about in German. So you're learning something about, you're watching something about. And in this case, it's about the von Trapp family. And then there's just slightly more information added in form of a relative clause afterwards, because we say die, and the die refers to the die Familie, die wirklich hier gelebt hat, so that actually that truly lived here. And if you just take 1 second to look at the word order in the sentence, we're starting with a relative pronoun die, and then we have wirklich hier gelebt, hat at the very end, and that is because in a relative clause, the conjugated verb is always at the end. I have to say I'm not the biggest musical fan, but I think I know which musical Oliveira is talking about here. And let's see if we get any more clues. Wir besuchen sogar das Schloss Leopoldskron, den originalen Drehort des Oscar-Erfolgs von 1965. Wir besuchen sogar, and sogar is the word for even, so we're even visiting das Schloss Leopoldskron. And the English translation for Schloss is castle, but there's actually a difference in German between the word Burg, which is also translated as castle, but the focus is on the defensive properties of the building. So it's normally something with high walls or a drawbridge. Whether Schloss is something more where aristocrats or the royal family lived in. So if you think about Schloss Neuschwanstein, which was the residency of Ludwig II, the king of Bavaria. But let's go back to the text. So they are visiting this castle, and then again we have a relative clause afterwards. And this time we're starting with den originalen Drehort des Oscar-Erfolgs. So the original film location of the Oscar success from 1965. So it wasn't just a musical, it was also turned into a movie. And maybe let's just have a quick look at the den originalen Drehort. And some of you have probably already recognized that it's in the accusative. And that is because it's a bit of additional information about the Schloss Leopoldskorn, but it's still connected to the besuchen. And the besuchen always takes the accusative, so that's why we have besuchen das Schloss in the accusative, but also besuchen den originalen Drehort des Oscar-Volks. Okay. And maybe one last word actually about pronouncing years in German. So in English you would say 1965, but in German you actually say 1965, so 1965. Okay, only one more clue left for us until we find out which city Oliveira is writing us from. Übermorgen schauen wir noch irgendwas über Mozart an. Der kommt wohl auch von hier. And the first word in the sentence here is actually one of my favorite words in German because it doesn't have an equivalent in English, and that's übermorgen, which translates as the day after tomorrow. So in German you have morgen, tomorrow, and übermorgen, the day after tomorrow. And actually also goes 2 days back into the past because we have gestern, which is yesterday, and vorgestern, the day before yesterday. But let's come back to the sentence. Our verb here is anschauen, and you see it's a separable verb because the prefix an is at the end of this part of the sentence. Anschauen means to watch, and they are watching irgendwas, something über Mozart, something about Mozart. So the day after tomorrow, we are watching something about Mozart, and then again we have a relative clause here starting with der, and that is because it refers back to Mozart, who was a man. And if you look what it means, der kommt wohl auch von hier. He, wohl is best translated with apparently, also comes from here, or he is apparently also from here. So it's der because we're referring to a masculine noun in the previous sentence, Mozart, and it's the subject of this relative clause. Therefore, it's in the nominative. So altogether, the day after tomorrow, we are visiting something about Mozart. He's apparently also from here. And from this, we can tell that Oliveira obviously cares way more about the musical than the history of Mozart. Then the last sentence, na, wo bin ich heute? Bis bald, Oliveira. So, where am I today? See you soon, Oliveira. Now, if we quickly think about this, it's the 4th biggest city in Austria. It's home to not even the famous Van Trapp family, which story got turned into a musical and an Oscar-winning movie, but was also home to Mozart. Na, weißt du es schon? Richtig, Oliveira ist heute in Salzburg in Österreich. Sehr gut. I hope you enjoyed this postcard from Oliveira, translating the sentences, figuring out where she is writing from, and that you learned something about the city, but also by dissecting these German sentences, that some of the German grammar makes a lot more sense to you now, that you understand why things are the way they are, and that you learn some new vocab or some new grammar rules. Vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen. Mein Name ist Thomas und bis bald. Tschüss.
Also, vielen Dank, Thomas. Thank you very much indeed, Thomas. I think I was taking notes there as we were going through that video, and I think one of the great things is that when you're looking at something like this, whether it's a reading text or something that you're listening to, when there's an explanation there, it reminds you about all the things that you've previously learned in lessons, whether you're attending lessons in a traditional setting or whether you're doing online lessons, whether you're following a course like Coffee Breaks German. And all of the things that you pick up in a text when you've got a teacher there helping you with it, you're reminded about the things that you already know. So, for example, in season 3, we've recently been working through season 3. In fact, we've just finished recording all of season 3 of Coffee Break German, and the word sogar came up so many times, and it's great to see it again in this text. And then another thing that I was reminding you about when Thomas was talking about the Schloss and the Burg, the difference between these two types of castles. This is something that we talked about way back in Potsdam with Julia when I filmed in Potsdam, a visit to Potsdam, which is Julia's home city. And we were visiting the Schloss Sanssouci in Potsdam. And she was explaining to me the difference between Burg and Schloss. And of course, in English, we just have the one word, a castle, although I guess you could possibly translate a Burg as a kind of fortress, depending on the historical context. But the difference between Schloss and Burg, very important. And I had remembered about Übermorgen, but I didn't know about Vorgestern. So that's an extra piece of vocabulary there for me. Übermorgen, the day after tomorrow, and Vorgestern, the day before yesterday. And in that last sentence, the wohl, meaning apparently, that was another thing that I picked up on. What did you pick up on in this video? I hope that you've picked up on something interesting. I hope that you've learned something new, whether it's about the location, which I see many of you are posting quite early in the video. You had worked out, Brenda had guessed that it was Salzburg, as had Giorgio, Lenka, Colin and Brigitte, and Marta auch. She also guessed where we were talking about for Oliveira's postcard. Now, this video, as I said, I'd like to know what you've learned. What was there something that you picked up on, something that you learned that you didn't know before, or something that you were reminded about, just as I was saying, when you're reminded about something that you've previously learned because you're working through something with a teacher. And as I said earlier, this video is part of our Coffee Break Club. The Coffee Break German Club features hundreds of videos like this, and I can show you what that looks like. If we just go over here, you should be able to see my screen now. So the Coffee Break German Club, there's another video with Thomas, a different Wo bin ich heute? It's a whole series. We've got lots of content there. And if we scroll down to the Coffee Break German videos here, and click on See All, you'll see here that there are hundreds of videos just like this, which you can use to pick up new phrases, which you can use to learn completely new content, and also to review the content that you already know. So we've got translation challenges, we've got SIP videos. The SIP videos are study, investigation, practice, where you are focusing on a grammatical point. We've got vocabulary videos, translation challenges. We've got a coffee break with. So this is where we get into the studio together. There's me and Oliveira in the studio talking about a text or talking about some interesting expressions. We've got discovery videos. So you can see here, ein Hamburger im Boot. Bitte. I have no idea what that one's about, but we can find out by watching that on the club. And lots more content there for German learners. And all of this is part of the Coffee Break Club, which is available to purchase now. It costs $19.99 per month or $44.99 per quarter. However, this week we are running a special offer. By using the code SPRING30, you can get 30% off your first month or your first quarter on Coffee Break TV. So that brings the price down significantly. You can use that coupon code anytime this week up until next Sunday. That would be Easter Sunday, which is the 9th of April. And just go to coffeebreaktv.com to use that code and sign up for the Coffee Break Club today. Now, over the next 3 days, we're going to be doing three more sessions where we're doing a little bit of learning. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing some comprehension and finding out about something interesting and looking at the German that is explained in that. And we'll go through it together afterwards. And then on Wednesday, we'll be doing some translations. And on Thursday, we'll be doing some grammar practice. And this is to give you a feel for what the Coffee Break Club entails. Literally, there are hundreds of videos that you can work through. And if by doing just a little bit of German every day, you can really improve your language skills and use your coffee breaks effectively. A couple of comments here. We've got Jana saying, I love your podcast. Vielen Dank, Jana. And Martin saying, Wunderbar Podcast. Vielen Dank. Thank you so much. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about the club or indeed about anything that was covered in our video. But as I said at the beginning of this video, it's just really a chance to do a little bit of learning. And as I say tonight, we're just doing a little bit of learning for 20 minutes or so and seeing what we can learn within those 20 minutes. Marta saying, I've been listening to your podcast for the last 2 months. I hope you have been enjoying it and I hope you've been learning lots, and do consider the Coffee Break Club to take your podcast learning even further. I am going to leave things there because we have got another live broadcast coming up, another live lesson in Spanish coming up at 8 o'clock our time. So if we have got time to just take a little breather, get some water, and get ready for our next live broadcast. And if you're watching on YouTube and you're a Spanish learner, stick around because we're going to be doing a Spanish postcard in just about 5 minutes' time or so from now. But for our German learners, our coffee break German listeners, vielen Dank nochmal. I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope that you've learned just a little. That's the key thing, just learning a little every time you do a bit of learning and taking your learning that little stage further. For now, vielen Dank. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Bis morgen und tschüss.